All right, we are live. We'll give people a second to find it. And the Metro schools is Thursday at 11 a.m. That their meeting. They're going to vote on this thing.
I don't know what's on their agenda. I don't know what action they're going to take or what's proposed at this time.
Gotcha.
I know this is
All
the
right.
subject, but
Come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Hollers all over the state. Thanks to you, all that good stuff. Rep Clemmons has been kind enough to join us, and I just wanted to pick his brain also about the press conference yesterday, just to kind of bring people up to speed. COVID is obviously spiking again here in Tennessee. Hospitalizations have quintupled since July 4th. I don't think anybody is too surprised about that, but we've now seen a lot of people sort of regretting that they didn't have the vaccine. Like 97% of them have been unvaccinated people, including this guy who just made his reappearance back at the legislature, Rep. David Byrd, who had missed the entire session and had a liver transplant and looked pretty disheveled when he came back. Rep. Clemmons, I wanted to ask you, let's go ahead. I'm going to play this clip first, actually. Let's go ahead and play the clip of the press conference yesterday where Speaker Sexton said he's going to have Governor Lee, his pal Governor Lee, call a special session if mask mandates are instilled.
And I sure hope that a school system in this state, after this data is released, does not cut their schools. If they do, I'm going to ask the governor for legislation to allow those parents in those school districts to take their money through school choice to go wherever they deem they need to go.
Well, first, let me ask you about that. So he threatened school vouchers. Was it surprising to you to hear him go right to vouchers, or is that just their number one priority with all things?
well, it raises several concerns. First of all, that constitutes a flip-flop for the speaker. He voted against vouchers and said that he opposed vouchers when that bill came before the House, and I don't think anybody's forgotten that vote before the House, with then Speaker Cassada held the vote open, and then Jason Zachary ultimately flipped after they pulled him onto the balcony for a while. And then I guess reports are that vote is still under investigation. But it's striking me that that the speaker went to the voucher route when the courts have still stayed those. I think they're unconstitutional at this time. They're pending I guess, final appeal of this Supreme Court. But so that was an interesting approach for him to take. But we'll see through the rest of this. I'll break it down in a second when we look at the rest of this and point out some more obscene parts of it.
All right, here we go.
There needs to be a message to these school systems. It's unacceptable to close schools or systems in our state anymore. Then the other thing is you hear a lot of these school systems, and I appreciate the governor's comments about we want the parents to make the decision on wearing masks in schools. So I sure hope that school systems do not require a mask mandate for those students. And if they do, I'm going to ask the governor for a special session. If they close the schools, I'm going to ask the governor for a special session. And if we hear, which we have been hearing, that school systems are going to segregate students based on who's vaccinated and unvaccinated, I'm going to ask the governor for a special session.
So, here's a very challenging Speaker Sexton basically saying that no matter what, nobody gets to try to protect their kids on his watch. What did you think when you heard that?
Well, look, if you're in elected office and your first top priority is not protecting the health and well-being of children of Tennessee, then your priorities are out of whack. Second, we need to make sure we're educating all of our children in an equitable manner in a safe environment. Those are top priorities. If those aren't your priorities, you probably should look for other work. Now looking back at the rest of that, you will know what he strategically did. You'll notice what he strategically did is he flexed, for his radical extremist base, but in doing so, he shifted the burden to Governor Lee because Speaker Sexton knows he has no unilateral authority to call a special session. Under Article 2, Section 8 of the Constitution, presiding officers of both houses do it upon the written request of 2/3 of each house, but he's not saying he's going to use that route. He's saying he's going to shift the burden to the governor. So he's basically the schoolyard bully. He says, "Don't mess with me, or I'm going to have that other guy come after you." It's pretty amusing. I mean, it was politically, strategic on his part because he got the benefit of the flex, but then he shifted all the burden to the governor, who's sitting there probably was caught flat-footed. And this governor not known for being quick on his feet, so he probably just nodded his head yes without actually thinking about the hypocrisy that would require of him to come in and finally take a substantive position on issues. Because as you know, throughout this whole pandemic, he has shifted the responsibility of all serious decision-making to local governments and municipalities. I mean, he has basically said through executive order and otherwise, I'm not making any decisions. You guys are going to make all the tough decisions.
Right.
And so now if he were to come in and call a special session just to punish, say, Nashville for issuing a school-wide universal mask mandate, that would not only be hypocritical, but it would also lead everybody to question his priorities when, locals should be, able to make a decision in the best interest of their students and their staff's health and well-being.
Right. So this whole time he's been saying local control, and their whole thing is small government. This completely flies in the face of all of that. And then right after this happened, seemingly minutes after, I don't know if you intended it that way, you and some other representatives and senators put out a letter to the Metro Nashville School Board or superintendent, I guess, asking for a mask mandate. First of all, was the timing coincidental? And then also, how long have you been planning to ask for that? And did it cross a threshold at a certain point?
Yeah, so that was purely coincidental. We actually wrote the letter and we've been working on the letter all, up until that point. We had no idea that Governor Lee or Sexton were even doing a press conference. And I'm not sure if our letter was done before that. So I'm not sure if he was reacting to our letter or if he was completely unaware of it and we were both kind of coincidental there. But it takes a lot to wrangle other members when we're out of session, as you can imagine. So I had written the letter and spent the later part of the morning and early afternoon trying to get signatures, and I had put a deadline on the letter, and it got out an hour or so after we had actually finalized it, just because of some logistical issues in my office and so forth. But yeah, that was a total coincidence. So I don't know if he was reacting to us or if it just happened to hit the wall at the same time. And
so the letter says Nashville should have a mask mandate. You believe that it should have one now based on the numbers you've seen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The CDC, the AAP, and even, have put out recommendations for mask indoors for students. Dr. Alice Jahangir, a good friend of mine, and, the chairman of the Metro Board of Health and trauma surgeon at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, has echoed those. So, everybody's in alignment on this who knows what they're talking about. I simply wanted to put that out there and encourage mask mandates. As you know, I've got 3 kids in Metro Nashville Public Schools. So this is a personal issue to me, their friends, classmates, fellow parents, PTO members. With the numbers the way they are, and all of us, Republican, Democrat, whoever, whatever position it is, we all want in-person learning. I mean, I don't think there's any question or disagreement about in-person learning being the best. That's our goal here. Our parallel to that is our goal is to keep our kids safe and healthy, and as well as MNPS staff. So what's the best way to do that? Well, the no-brainer is to have universal mask mandates. We can't make everybody get vaccinated. Nobody's issuing a vaccination mandate. No teacher or school is going to go through, Sexton talked about segregation of students based on vaccination. I've not heard of that. I don't know where that's coming from. Segregation of any type is frowned upon, especially in this light and many others. So I don't know where he got that or pulled that out of a hat. But teachers in schools are logistically and legally impossible to find out which students are vaccinated. So the easiest thing here is just have a mask mandate. It's proven to work. The Duke study has shown masks are effective. Look, it's a no-brainer. And
why do you think?
MMPS,
Why do you think they're so opposed to it? Is it like a part of me thinks that they know the vaccine conversation is a real loser for them and that they really blew it with that. So they'd rather argue about masks than argue about vaccines. Is that possible?
Well, their problem throughout this whole pandemic has been they're reacting to radicals rather than data and science. When you react and make decisions based on a handful or a loud minority of extremists or anti-science, vaxxers, rather than looking at the data and the science and kind of making a decision in the best interest of the general public health and welfare, that's your first problem. And so now they're caught in a catch-22. They vaccines they blew. They completely blew that. And then all that was capped off the firing and termination of Dr. Fiscus. Completely disaster. Failure of leadership at the highest level in the worst way possible. So now they're kind of pulling back on this whole mask mandate and trying to look strong on that, and that's where you saw the threat from Sexton yesterday. Is he's trying to flex and gain some of that popularity back, but he can't do it on his own, so he shifted the bird back to the governor in front of the governor's face. I have a feeling that Governor Lee probably wasn't too happy about the way that was handled, and those two, there's a lot of friction between those two. It's pretty apparent. So maybe we also just sit back, eat some popcorn, and watch the R-on-R violence. And all those guys jockey for positions in Republican primaries and try to save face. Meanwhile, Tennesseans are getting sicker. Tennesseans are dying. Our students, our children, our families, our neighborhoods, our communities are all threatened by an ongoing pandemic. And none of those guys want to provide any leadership or take any responsibility. So, hey, let's leave it to locals. Our local governments will make right decisions, I hope. And we want to encourage Dr. Battle to make the right, obvious decision. Worst case scenario with our letter, what our goal was not to put pressure on Dr. Battle necessarily, but to provide her and show her give her some political cover, provide her some support. Let her know that all of us, if she makes that right decision, we all support. I think the majority of this board will do the same thing. I think they would support, a majority of them would support a mask mandate. And so, she's got the support of the entire community to do the right thing. And I remain confident that she will. And that's what we were trying to express to her and put in writing in that letter.
Well, I appreciate that you wrote it. It's always good when folks are speaking up just just to show the flip side. This was 2 tweets on back-to-back days. The one on the right came first from Republican House Caucus Chair Jeremy Faison. On the right, he says, "Get vaccinated," they said. "Wear a mask, flatten the curve. It's all your fault. They were wrong. They're still wrong. We shouldn't listen." And then the next day said, "Hey, let me be straightforward and clear, as I've always tried to be. I'm in full support and advocacy of private citizens receiving vaccinations. It fights the virus." And so, Jeremy Faison is sort of the opposite of what we're talking about. And these guys, this was 3 days ago, they continue to send signals to their extremist base to try to show them they're trying to outflank each other when it comes to extremism and radicalism.
Well, let me be clear. Jeremy, just a friend of mine, we don't agree on much, but Jeremy is trying to touch a lot of bases just like they all are, and hypocrisy runs rampant through the Republican ranks, and it always has, especially at our state level. These guys got, bless their hearts, they're trying to please everybody, and they're trying to protect us from, a far-right primary opponent, but that should be the least of everybody's concerns right now. Let's take politics off the table, and let's focus on protecting the health and welfare of Tennesseans. We're incentivizing cattle vaccinations, as we should, but let's, care about the lives of our children as much as we do about livestock. This is a public health crisis. It's still a crisis. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. The numbers are getting worse. If we don't start acting responsibly and consistently and providing leadership as elected officials, and I include myself in that, I should be held accountable too. If we don't start doing something, we're going to continue this. This is going to continue to be an uncertain situation. It's going to continue to threaten people's health and livelihoods. It's going to continue to threaten our local economies, and it's going to continue to put Tennessee in jeopardy. You know, right now we are the laughing stock of the country. It is a situation that can be resolved with some common sense and responsible decision making. You know, I'd love to see that from the highest levels of leadership in our state.
All right, thanks, John Ray, for joining us. That's Rep. John Ray Clemmons. Just to be clear, he wasn't kidding about the vaccinating cows versus vaccinating people thing. We really do pay to vaccinate cows, while they won't incentivize COVID shots. So that wasn't just a flip comment he made. That was a headline that's out there today. John Ray, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it, and appreciate you jumping on here. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Hey, it's important that we vaccinate those cows. Fully support that program. Agricultural Enhancement Act, good program, very important for Tennessee's rural communities and all of our farmers. But hey, let's care about Tennesseans' lives just as much.
Thank you, sir. Take care. That is John Ray Clemmons, folks, joining us from the road. Appreciate you guys being with us. Again, they put out that letter to encourage Metro Nashville schools to do the right thing, and as he said, give them cover. So, you know, if you want to encourage their superintendent, let them know how you feel about it. Make sure to reach out and let them know. And again, you know, I don't want to see kids masked up. Nobody wants this, but we're at a point now where hospitalizations are spiking, cases are going up, and, you know, everybody just wants to do what it takes to keep the schools open, to keep the kids from having to learn remotely again. So you got to be willing to do what it takes to, you know, keep people healthy if you want the schools open. And this freak out about masks and how horrible they are, how it's tyranny. I mean, it's really over the top. And I'm a believer that part of the reason they want to fight about that is because they know they've lost the vaccine argument, and a lot of people have died because of the misinformation they've been putting out there. So it's nice of Rep. Clemmons to join us. Obviously, Gloria joined us earlier. Tomorrow, for those of you, we're going to put this out, but tomorrow at noon, we're going to be joined by a good friend of mine, Adam Brody, who is a political animal himself and, you know, has opinions about all this stuff. He's an actor. You may know him from Orange County. You may know him from Kid Detective, his movie that's out now. He's been in all kinds of things. Great guy, smart guy, good opinions, and he'll be with us at noon Central Time. Adam Brody, join us tomorrow. And as always, we appreciate you guys. Follow all the haulers throughout the state. We'll talk to you soon.